Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to continue the discussion on sentence patterns. In the previous meetings, we learned about sentence patterns 1 to 5. And today we'll move on to sentence patterns 6 to 10. Let's see the differences among them. But before that, let me remind you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe this channel. Okay, let's check it out. Right, so in the last two meetings, we learned about sentence patterns 1 to 5. They mainly focus on the use of intransitive verbs or VI. They refer to the verbs that do not need objects. But today we will focus on the use of transitive verbs or VT. Okay, it's a new term, it's a new abbreviation. We have VT, stands for transitive verbs. Transitive verbs are the verbs that need objects. For example, eat, say, decide. When you use this kind of verbs, you will need to use objects. For example, I eat a banana. I eat something. You cannot just say I eat. So, I eat a banana, for example. I say a word. Yeah, I say something. Next one, I decide to leave the meeting. I decide something. Okay. A complement or adjunct may occur, but it is not the important part. Okay, so a complement or adjunct may occur or in this kind of sentence patterns, but it is an optional part of the sentence. It's not the main point of the sentence. Okay. Right, so let us start with sentence pattern 6. Sentence pattern 6 is usually in the form of verb, which is followed by direct object or DO in the form of noun, pronoun, and gerund. Let me remind you again, gerund is the ing form of the verb which function as a noun. And DO here, or the direct object, is the object directly receiving the action of the verb. Right. Next one, we will start from VP6A. This is the first sub-patterns of VP6. The formula is subject plus VT plus noun or pronoun. For example, they did very little work that day. They is the subject. Did here is the VT or verb transitive. It's from the infinitive do, functioning as the main verb. And then very little work is the noun. That day, the underlined word is an adjunct of time, and it is optional, meaning that it's not an important part in this pattern. Second example, nobody answered my questions. Nobody here is the subject. Answered is the VT, and then my question is a noun. I love you. I here is the subject, and then loved you is the VT, and you is the pronoun. It's similar with the last example here. The news surprised me. The news is subject, surprised is the VT, and me is the pronoun. Okay, there is a note here. In VP6A, conversion to passive voice is possible. Okay, conversion here is the changing of form. We know that sentences has two forms, active sentence and passive sentence or passive voice. In active sentence, usually the subject can be converted into the object of the passive voice and vice versa. For example, in the first sentence here, they did very little work that day. They is the subject and very little work is the object. But in passive voice, the subject will be very little work and the object will be them. They, yeah, from the word they, but because it is the object, so it becomes them. So the passive voice will be very little work was done by them that day. So in this pattern, the conversion from active to passive voice is possible. Next one, we have VP6B. The formula is subject plus VT plus noun or pronoun. Okay, it's exactly the same formula with the previous one, but what differs them is only this one. Conversion to passive is impossible. So here you cannot convert the subject in the active sentence to the object in the passive sentence, and vice versa. For example, in the use of the verb have in VP6A indicates the meaning of experience in something. But in VP6B, have here means possess or own, and then take or drink. Okay, the example, he has got great charm. Okay, so he has got here is not an experience, yeah, but it shows the meaning of possession or ownership. He has got great charm. He is the subject, has got is the VT, and great charm is the noun. Have you had your breakfast yet? Okay, this is the interrogative form. The subject is you, and then the verb is have had, meaning take, and then your breakfast here is the object. Yet here is the adjunct of time, and then I have had my coffee. I here is the subject, have had here is the VT, and my coffee is the noun. And then he hurt himself. He here is the subject, hurt here is the VT, and himself is the pronoun. Okay, let's check the note here. In VP6B, conversion to passive voice is impossible, meaning that you cannot change the active sentence into the passive sentence. For example, he hurt himself is the active sentence. You cannot change it into himself has been hurt by him. Okay, so this kind of construction is unacceptable. So you know the difference, right? Okay. Next one, we have VP6C. The formula is subject plus VT plus gerund. For example, she enjoys playing tennis. Okay, again, gerund is the inform of the verb functioning as the noun. She is the subject, enjoys is the VT, and then playing tennis is the gerund or gerund phrase. You should practice speaking English. You is the subject, should practice is the VT, and speaking English is the gerund. I can't stand traveling in the rush hours. I is the subject, can't stand is the VT, traveling in the rush hours is the gerund. Please stop talking. Okay, stop here is the verb, and then VT, and then talking is the gerund. What about the subject? Because it's an imperative sentence, so the subject is omitted. Some verbs used in VP6C are like begin, consider, contemplate, admit, advise, advocating, avoid, continue, defend, deny, describes, and so on and so forth. Okay, the next one, we have VP6D. The formula is similar to the previous pattern, subject plus VT plus gerund. For example, she likes swimming. So here, she is the subject, likes is the VT, swimming is gerund. You begin talking about his family. You is subject, begin is VT, and talking about his family is gerund. I love having breakfast in bed. I is the subject, loved here is the VT, and having breakfast in bed is gerund. Okay, so what differs this pattern from the previous pattern, because both of them use gerund. Okay, so in VP6C, the form cannot be converted into VP7, but in in VP6D, the pattern can be converted to VP7. For example, she enjoys going to concert. It cannot be she enjoys to go to concert. It has different meaning. But when we have VP6D, like she loves going to concerts, then The conversion to 57 is she loves to go to concerts. They have similar meaning. Okay, and then 50-60 is usually used to indicate preferences, likes or dislikes, or the opposites, to express the general statement. But the 57 is used after the statement or questions indicating particular occasion, especially with the verb would or should. Okay, for example, in the first sentence, I like swimming. Okay, I like swimming. It uses the gerund or 50-60 pattern because it expresses the like. Okay, the preference. General statement about the preference. But the second sentence, would you like to go for a swim this afternoon? It shows a questions, yeah, and it is started with the verb would, so we use 57 or to infinitive instead of 50-60 or gerund. I hope that's clear. Next, we have 56E. The formula is subject and then VT, but the VT here focus only with some verbs like need, want, won't. Want here stands for will not, and then wouldn't bear. Okay. Plus gerund, but here the gerund has the passive meaning. For example, the garden needs watering. The garden is the subject. Needs here is the verb, and then watering here, the gerund, has passive meaning. It means that the garden needs to be watered. Next, it want mending. It is the subject, want is the verb, and then mending here has the passive meaning as a gerund. It's the same with it want to be repaired or to be mended. And then it wouldn't bear thinking of, or it wouldn't bear to be thought of. Alright, so wouldn't bear here is used with gerund, as in 50-60. Yeah, like I wouldn't, it wouldn't bear thinking. It can also be used with 57. For example, she can bear seeing, or she can bear to see animals treated cruelly. Okay, next one we have 57A. The formula is subject plus VT plus not. Not here is optional. You may use it or you may omit it plus to infinitive. For example, I prefer not to start early. I here is the subject, and then prefer here is the VT, and then not, you can use not or omit it, and then to start early is the to infinitive. Second one, it is started to rain. It is the subject, it started is the VT, and then to rain is the to infinitive. He pretended not to see us. He is the subject. Pretended here is the VT, and not here is used, which is optional, and then to see us is the to infinitive. Okay, you need to remember here there are some notes. Yeah, the first with the use of the verb remember and forget, because we also have the similar verbs in 56C. Yeah, so when remember here means have in the memory, so you use 56C. For example, I remember meeting you in Jakarta. So remember here means have in the memory, having the memory. But when the meaning is keeping something consciously in mind, okay, so you use 57A, like please remember to post my letters. So here remember means to keep in mind that you have to post my letters. The second one, we have also the verb forget in 56C. What is the difference? Okay, when it means lose the memory of something, then you have to use 50-60. Like, I should never forget hearing him playing the guitar. Okay, means that you should not lose the memory of hearing him playing the guitar. But when the forget here means neglect or fail to do something, so you have to use 57A. For example, I forgot to buy you flowers, meaning that I failed to buy you flowers. Okay. The next one, we have 57B. The formula is subjects plus have for O plus not. Not here is optional plus to infinitive. But here the emphasis is have here shows the obligation. So usually you have the verb have to. Okay, it's similar with must. And then O here has a similar meaning with should. Yeah, so it shows the mild obligation, while have to has a strong obligation meaning. Okay, for example, you have to choose the right major. So you here is the subject, and then have is the verb, and then to choose the right major here is the to infinitive. Next, you don't have to go to school. You here is the subject, don't have is the verb, and then to go to school is the to infinitive. You ought to complain. You here is the subject, O here is the verb showing mild obligation, and then to complain here is the to infinitive. Some verbs used in VP7B are like ache, longed, afford, arrange, attempt, begin, bother, and choose. Next, we have VP8. The formula is subject plus VT plus interrogative pronoun or adverb. Okay, again, interrogative pronoun or adverb plus to infinitive. For example, she couldn't decide what to do next. She is the subject, couldn't decide is the VT, and what here is the interrogative pronoun, and to do next here is the to infinitive. Second example, I will ask how to get there. I here is the subject, will ask here is the VT, and how to get there here, how is the interrogative adverb, and then to get there here is the to infinitive. And then she didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. She is the subject, didn't know is the VT, whether here is the interrogative adverb, and then to laugh or to cry is the to infinitive. Some verbs used in VP8 are like ask, consider, debate, decide, discover, explain, forget, and etc. And there is a note here, an important note, that when the subject of the infinitive or the to infinitive is different with the subject of the main clause, like the example here, so VP10 is used. For example, do you know how to do it? Okay, do you know how to do it? In this example, we have to use VP8. Why? Because the subject of the to infinitive is the same with the subject of the main clause. But when the subject of the to infinitive is different with the subject of the main clause, so you have to use VP10. For example, do you know how he did it? So the subject of the main clause is you, but the subject of the to infinitive is he. So when you have different subjects like this one, so you have to use VP10. Okay, the next one, we have the VP9. The formula is subject plus VT plus that clause. Okay. For example, I wish you wouldn't interrupt. So it should be I wish that you wouldn't interrupt, but that here is omitted. I will suppose you will be there. I will suppose that you will be there. He said he was busy. He said that he was busy. So the question is, when should we omit the word that, and when should we use it? Okay, so before that, let me explain first that the verbs usually used with VP9 are like acknowledge, add, admit, allow, argue, believe, and etc. So after frequently used verbs like say, wish, hope, think, expect, and believe, you can omit that. For example, I wish you are happy. You don't need to say I wish that you are happy. But after less frequently used verbs like decide, suggest, intend that are rarely used, so you usually still keep the word that. Okay, for example, he suggested that I stop working in my previous job. The use of verb feel here indicates non-physical perceptions, while the use of verb hear here indicates the meaning of learn or informed. Okay, the last one, we have the VP10. The formula is subject plus VT plus dependent clause or questions. For example, I don't know who she is. I here is the subject, don't know is the PD, and then who she is here is the dependent clause. I wonder where that music is coming from. The last one, I will find out when the train leaves. Okay. The verbs used in VP10 are like ask, debate, decide, deliberate, determine, etc. The dependent question may have front position, or usually the position is changed into the fronting position to show the prominence, to show that the information is important. For example, whether the plane will leave on time, nobody seems to know. Actually, the normal position will be nobody seems to know, but because the speaker considers the information that whether the plane will leave on time is prominent or important, so this dependent clause can be placed in front position of the sentence. Alright, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to my explanations. I hope the material will be useful for you. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe this channel. Okay, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye everyone.